You know, creatine has officially broken out of the gym. It's not just for 20-something bodybuilders anymore. We're seeing adults in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s using it more than ever. But here's the problem. With all this new popularity, there's a ton of incomplete information floating around. Everyone loves to talk about the benefits, but almost nobody mentions the stuff you really need to watch out for. So let's dive in and get the full story.
So, be honest. When you hear the word creatine, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably some young athlete trying to bulk up, right? For years, that was the public image. But it turns out the science is painting a totally different picture now, especially for those of us over 50. And here's a stat that might surprise you. Only about 1% of people over 50 who take creatine actually understand the full range of its effects. Both the good stuff and the parts that, need a little more attention. So stick with me, because in the next few minutes, you're going to be in that top 1%.
All right, first up, we're going way beyond the gym floor myths to see what the actual science says about creatine for a body that's, well, seen a few decades. The first, and maybe the most surprising benefit, has absolutely nothing to do with lifting heavy weights. It's all about your brain. See, at its core, creatine isn't really a muscle-building supplement. It's an energy-enhancing one. And your brain is, by far, the most energy-hungry organ you have.
I mean, just look at this. It's kind of wild. Your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but it devours a whopping 20% of your total energy. And just like your muscles, your brain actually stores and uses creatine for really demanding tasks. This gets super important as we age because the brain's natural energy efficiency can start to decline.
So supplementing with creatine can basically help refuel your brain's energy tanks. There was a key study from the University of Sydney that showed adults over 45 had better memory and less mental fatigue after just 6 weeks. And get this, while it's still early for human trials, some new research suggests creatine might even have neuroprotective qualities, helping our brains resist damage over time. Okay, so we've talked about the brain. Now let's get into how this builds, because creatine offers some pretty incredible physical benefits that directly fight back against some of the main challenges of aging. One of the sneakiest but most damaging parts of aging is something called sarcopenia. It's a fancy word for losing muscle mass. It actually starts around age 30, but it really picks up speed after 50. We can lose 3 to 5% of our muscle mass every decade, and that rate can even double after 60. And that, of course, leads to weakness, slowness, and a much higher risk of getting hurt.
This is where creatine, when you combine it with resistance training, becomes a powerhouse. And this chart just shows it brilliantly. A study from the University of Oklahoma found that men aged 55 to 70 who took creatine gained more than double the lean muscle mass compared to the guys who just got a placebo. The lesson here? The people who need it the most often seem to benefit the most.
And let's be clear, this isn't just about looking better in the mirror. Stronger muscles, especially in your legs and core, mean better balance and stability. This directly lowers the risk of falls, which, as we know, are a leading cause of serious injuries for adults over 65. It's really the difference between independence and dependence. And it gets even better. Our bones tend to lose density as we get older, right? Well, check this out. Studies show that combining creatine with resistance training can actually reverse that trend, leading to a 1 to 2% gain in bone density per year. It doesn't just put the brakes on bone loss, it can help you rebuild. That's huge. And the benefits just keep stacking up. Creatine can help lower inflammation markers, which is great for your heart. It can even help with joint pain. One study found a 33% pain reduction in folks with knee osteoarthritis. Plus, it helps you recover faster from workouts, which is the key to staying consistent and actually seeing results. Okay, but for every upside, there's always the other side of the coin. So in this section, we're not talking about dangers, but we are talking about some crucial points you absolutely have to be aware of. So the first thing a lot of people notice is a little jump on the scale, maybe a few pounds in the first couple of weeks. But hold on, it's not fat. Creatine pulls water into your muscle cells. This is actually a good thing. It's a sign it's working, creating a better environment inside the muscle for growth. However, and this is a really big however, if you have any pre-existing heart or kidney conditions, this fluid shift is something you need to take very seriously. Your heart and kidneys are in charge of your body's fluid balance, so any changes have to be discussed with and monitored by your doctor. No exceptions. So this right here might be the single most overlooked and most important part of the whole conversation. Lots of adults over 50 are on medications for things like blood pressure or inflammation. As you can see here, creatine can interact with some of these drugs. This isn't something to Google or guess about. This is an absolutely non-negotiable conversation to have with your healthcare provider.
Now, on a lighter note, a small handful of people, we're talking about 5%, might get some mild digestive issues like bloating, especially when they're first starting out.
The good news is, this is almost entirely avoidable. First, forget about that high-dose loading phase you might read about online. Just start with a small, consistent daily dose, like 3 to 5 grams. And always take it with a meal and plenty of water, and you should be able to sidestep any of that discomfort.
Finally, what about muscle cramps? You might hear about that sometimes. Well, this is a real thing, but it boils down to one simple cause: dehydration. Because creatine is pulling extra water into your muscles, you just have to drink more water overall to compensate. And as we get older, our sense of thirst isn't always as sharp, so you have to be proactive about it.
Okay, let's pull all this together into a final game plan. What's the smart approach here? What are the big things to remember?
I think the single biggest mental shift we need to make is this. We have to stop thinking of creatine as just a bodybuilding supplement and start seeing it for what the science clearly shows it is: a legitimate tool for improving your health span and your quality of life as you age. So, let's recap the highlights. The benefits for your brain, your muscles, and your bones are real and backed by science. For most people, it's very safe, but you've got to be smart about your dosage and stay hydrated. Those medication interactions are a serious deal and require a doctor's advice. And last but not least, remember, this is a supplement to exercise. It doesn't replace it.
And that leads us to the single most important step you can take. You now have the full picture: the good, the bad, and the stuff to watch out for. So take this info, grab your list of medications, and go have an informed conversation with your doctor to decide if this is actually the right move for you. Which really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. With all the complicated anti-aging strategies out there, could it be that one of the most effective tools for aging with strength, vitality, and a sharp mind is also one of the simplest and most researched? Something to think about.